completion of a sale of a listing. That's what, because this has got OrdLock on the input types. Now, each of these subscriptions can support, oops, that's sort of an old, that doesn't even apply to this. So each of these fields, you can put more than one thing in, and you can put stuff in more than one field. But everything in a subscription is currently anded together. So if you want to do this field equals this or this field equals that, Junglebook does not currently support that. We've got some plans to make it support that because that will add a lot of flexibility to make topics return a lot more different types of data in one subscription. But yeah, so in here is actually example JavaScript code. If you run the JavaScript client, now I will say I always use the Go client. I don't use the JavaScript client, so I'm not that knowledgeable about ins and outs of using this, but it's very, very similar looking to the Go client. There's also, if we go back to junglebus.gorillapool.io, the bottom of that, there's a link to a docs site. And that docs site will explain more about some of the protocols that are in there. I don't think this is entirely updated with all the newest stuff, but it is somewhat. So here's where the fun stuff happens. Well, first of all, any questions at this point about anything? Sounds like no.
It's a lot of silence.
It is indeed. So when we go to BSV 20s, a lot of these are just different. None of these are actually, well, Bamboo is that one. So we went through output types and context and subcontext, but as of, well, the crawling is incomplete. So don't go off and run this right now and expect that everything will be perfect because we are recrawling some data right now. But you can specify data keys from a few fields of BSV 20 inscriptions. So these are only recognized for ones where the content type is application BSV 20. That's one of the filtering rules that we're using. So older inscriptions where for the short time that text/plain was supported as a content type, that is not currently delivering from these endpoints. But we have a couple different data keys here. So for BSV 20 v2 tokens, you can say ID equals. So this is the contract ID for Bamboo tokens. So if I go back down to Bamboo, oops, I should have gone block equals works. So you'll see how quickly it's flying through the blocks right here. So then here, so this was my initial deploy plus mint, not mine. This was the initial deploy plus mint of the Bamboo contract. So all BSV 20 op fields will show up here. So you can look for all op mints, but that's going to give you way more data than you want to deal with right now. You can look for deploy plus mint for BSV 20 v2s. You can look for just deploy op equal deploy for v1s, and then v1s also will include tick equals, and then the ticker name base 64 encoded, and that's kind of a bummer, but that's because all the emoji symbols and everything we have, the index is really just looking at raw simple ASCII text, and so we needed to encode it to get it in ASCII. So But you can build a subscription. In fact, let me go to one of these I've built. So one sat, for instance. Pick equals, and then this is the string 1 SAT as uppercase base 64 encoded. So if I go to that one here. Now, one sat is an interesting case because it was deployed lock equals 783. Let this run for a sec. Okay. So the first one sat token that was deployed with an application BSV, not deployed, that was minted or transferred or whatever this is. We'll see what it is in a second here. Was at block 792653. So this was an op mint. So the deploy, and this is where things are going to get interesting with some of these old BSV 20 V1s, is they had a different content type and a different set of rules were allowed, and so there probably will need to be one subscription required to get the old data to figure out when the deploys happened with the text plain content type, and then start from the point where the token got deployed with application BSV 20 to start being able to build filters with these data properties. Any questions on any of that? And anyone want to play with it?
Don't be silent. Speak up. This is fun.
And I don't have
And I'm
tons of places
guessing
I'm going to walk through this. So like where the questions go is where I'm going to lead it. Otherwise, we'll open it up to whatever else.
Yeah, if someone minted a ton of one sats in one transaction with a lot of the same output, can you query by script hash?
So no, but yes. So as long as the field, I'll double check the code in a second. It is not script hash, it is actually the raw script itself.
Okay.
So let's actually grab this one. This is probably one of those. So actually you can tell the first part of it here is actually just a pay to public key hash because that's what this is. And they exactly well, they don't exactly match, but so this is a pay to public key hash script followed by an op false, op if, 3 characters, ORD. Yeah, this is it. So let's actually just go into, I'm gonna have to share a different screen here. Actually, put this on do not disturb. And then I will share my whole screen. Make sure I don't have any password managers up or anything. No. So if I go, actually, I'm gonna exit here. I'm not even on the window I want to be on.
When are you going to start using Vim?
Never.
Good.
Oh yeah, so I'm gonna go node. Can you guys see this okay? Is it big enough or do I need to make it bigger?
Yeah.
looks fine to me.
So I'm gonna go say s equals bsv dot script from hex s dot to asm the string. So yeah, you'll see that was the raw script for a pay to public key hash. And then up false, up if, ORD, up one, there's our content type. So if I then take this and I go hex dot, nope, buffer dot from hex dot to string. Geez, oh, please learn to type. There you go. So yes, if it's a repeat of the same thing over and over again and for the same address, and the whole script is less than, I believe it's 512 bytes. I'm actually not going to go into that code right now because that might have some secrets that I can't. Well, I can stop sharing my screen and go double check. I'll do that. Let's see here. Output. So it looks like what the logic is we will save the first 32 unique scripts in a transaction with a max size of 512 bytes. So yeah, if you've got the same inscription a whole bunch of times for the same address, you can absolutely create a output query and you'll actually just paste in the hex. So let's go back share the screen again. So in fact, let me just copy this as an example. I'm going to go back. I'm going to create a new subscription. We're going to say output sample. And if I say, oh no, okay, I lied. We have to expose that field. The functionality is all there. The user interface does not actually allow you to do it yet.
Got it. But you just put like the push data bytes and you can query by that.
It's not the push data bytes. It's the entire transaction hex.
Even if it so, but if I made the request, could I just automatically query and you guys will truncate, or should I be sending like 512?
I
for a
think
long
you're gonna have to
script?
send exactly what exactly how it truncates.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, a lot of this stuff, like this thing, this app, Jungle Bus got released just over a year ago. It was very beta for a long time, and then throughout the summer, we did some really, really big re-engineering that makes it super fast, very stable, and scalable for a long, long ways. So, but at the same time, most functionality that's been built has been built because someone needed that specific functionality. Jungle Bus will never do anything stateful. It can't really know of it, like it can't calculate complex logic. But if there's a good case to be made for a certain type of filter to be added and recognized, it's totally. It's not like it's a set in stone tool that tons of people are using and it can't change. Like right now, it's mostly. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's getting picked up by quite a few people doing little hobbies here or there. But anyways, we can add stuff if we need to, and there's a good case that can be made. How quickly it can get prioritized when there's just a few of us working on it, that's another question. But and then actually, let me go over to the docs for a second. Am I still sharing? Yes. So, this at? I should probably familiarize myself with this documentation before we go. So there are essentially There we go. There are 4 different types of transactions, or 4 different types of messages that you can get and you can handle from Jungle Bus. And every time you subscribe to one of the topics, you can actually add handlers for these different message types, or you can ignore these message types and then they won't even be delivered to your client. And those are on publish. On publish is kind of strange name, but really that means the transactions that are being fed to you through it have been found in a block. And included with those transactions will be information about the block height, the block index, the Merkle proof, the block ID or block hash. Those things will all come down with your records along with your transaction. So everything in Jungle Bus is kind of filtered to the transaction level. Not lower than that. It doesn't tell you about individual transaction outputs. It's just this transaction is tagged with these identifiers. Then on mempool down here is the same thing as on transaction. It gives you the same object, but block height is going to be 0, block index is going to be 0, block ID is going to be empty string, Merkle proof won't be built out yet. This is for listening to transactions that match your criteria that are in the mempool. And as new transactions stream into the mempool, it should send you those transactions onto this topic here. And we've got on error. That's fairly self-explanatory. That raises when there's an error that happens, communicating with the backend of Jungle Bus. And then we have on status. So the Jungle Bus is all about delivering you data in order in such a way that you can keep track of how far your crawl process has gone. So if it crawls one block at a time, and when you call it, you actually are specifying a from block. From block being what block height do you want to start crawling from? So if I go back over to my tester here, like by default, this tester starts from block 750,000. Now I knew that there were no ordinals back that far. And again, the user interface needs a little work here, but if you in the query string go block equals then what height you want to do, it will change it. So I told this start from block 800,000. I start and boop, and it goes sequentially. So if I were listening to control messages here, I would get on publish, on publish, on publish, on publish, all the way down. And then right after this message got the on publish, I would get a on status with a block done. So that you can keep track of, like, okay, I have indexed up to this block. Let me finalize that and keep track of that I've done that before I then move on to the next block. So if at any point you disconnect somewhere between the next block, you know that you've finished before, or you finished that previous block. And so when you go to reconnect, you can reconnect from the block that you were on. So maybe you got 100 transactions into that next block, something blew up, something died, you canceled your app or whatever. You can then subscribe again from the top of that block. It'll give you those 50 or 100 transactions again, as well as everything after it. And so kind of the atomic unit that you need to track your progress of indexing is at the block height level. There are also messages that come for when reorgs get triggered. So, and essentially every block that happens will get delivered through Jungle Bus. Well, I shouldn't say that. If a reorg happens, like, you need to keep track of rewinding your own data set yourself. In fact, I kind of take the lazy approach to all this, which is when I'm listening to these subscriptions, I actually don't track the last block that I finished as being finished. I save 6 blocks previous to that. So if at any point I disconnect and then a reorg on the chain happens, and so a block at a certain block height isn't what it was last time, like I'm just gonna have my system automatically fix that because I'm rewinding 6 blocks anyways and starting my subscription from 6 blocks back. Now, if you're trying to get all the OJBK tokens, well, crawling back or rewinding 6 blocks is going to be a lot. So for a lot of these kind of things, I mean, sometimes it's good to, while you're initially syncing until it catches up, you don't need to worry about any of that reorg stuff because you're only looking at old data. It's not going to reorg. But once you get caught up to current, and then you're listening, well, you could have finished a block, your app could have crashed, you could have closed it, whatever. A reorg could have happened, and that block height could be a different block than it was before. So that's where you gotta be cognizant of those kind of issues. You gotta know how Bitcoin works under the covers, I guess is what I'm saying. Any questions?
Yeah. Hello, everybody.
Hey, go ahead.
What was the largest reorg on BSV?
Honestly, I have no idea.
200?
You kind of broke up at the last part of whatever you said.
Yeah, because I just remember there was a time where exchanges started to change the confirmation time to 200.
Yeah, the largest reorg
Right.
was 99 blocks, but that's like,
Okay.
I don't know, it's probably something that's better suited for a conversation at a different time. Dave, I kind of like live tweeted ish what you were saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I did a shit job at it because I wasn't planning on doing that before we started, and I fell kind of behind immediately. But maybe if you want to just go through my tweets real quick, the comment, and I'll send you and see like what I didn't get right or what I did get right, and maybe reiterate the things you were saying in a
Yeah.
way now that you're not demonstrating the code that might be a little more concise for the video.
Yep.
Here we go,
All
hold
right.
on.
This is the how to build an indexer with Jungle Bus.
Yep. Oh, yeah, cool. I sent you the link to the tweet in the chat, but if you already got there, that's cool.
Oh, is there only one message there, or did it not come as a thread?
Maybe it probably just didn't come as a thread. I just kept adding comments.
All right, so let me just go to your page then. Okay. Subscription returns any or all for record types on publish. TX details found in a block. That sounds right. On mempool, same object as on publish, except block details will be null. Streams as transactions are received. That sounds good. On error, raises when there's an error. On status, raises every time a single block's transactions have all been sent. Indicates when to reconnect if you get disconnected. That sounds good. Question. If someone minted a lot of outputs in one TX, can we query by script hash? Yes, you can find the pattern in the outputs. Again, the user interface for that is missing right now. I didn't realize
That's
that when
okay.
I started that, but it literally should be as simple as just building out the user interface. The backend supports it fully.
Well, yeah, just because the interface doesn't allow you to do it at this moment doesn't mean it's not possible. It totally is possible.
Yep.
So the answer is yes.
Yes. When Jungle Bus finds a BSP20 v2 deploy, it will return the details like this in the data field. Yep, I mean, that works.
Is there more context that we want to add to that for the video's sake? We're going actually kind of backwards here, so why don't you? We're going in reverse order, so I don't know if that's the right way to be
no, that's
asking
the
you to add
point.
context.
Yeah, let me scroll to the bottom. Jungle Bus takes a look at every transaction. Oh, wait, this was a reply. Let me. Oh, I see. You replied all the same one. Jungle Bus takes a
Yeah.
look at every transaction and sees if it can be pattern matched to tag it with something like ordlock, etc. When you're creating a subscription, you can filter the subscription to the type of transactions you want. That sounds great. Create a subscription to ordinals that do not include application BSV20, and you've got the picture there. That looks great. Every time Jungle Bus finds a transaction that fits the filters and patterns that you've set, it will send you the details of the TX in this format. You know, am I sharing my screen still? No, I'm not. Let me do that. So we can all read the same. Close that. Every time Jungle Bus finds a transaction that fits the filters and patterns that you've set, we'll send the details of the transaction in this format. Tells you about the context of the transaction, like what kind of output is this. Yeah, I like this.
Yay.
Jungle Bus parser is doing very lightweight parsing. The indexer is the place where we do the detailed context enrichment. Ooh, big words.
Yeah.
You can put more than
I
one
started
item.
by trying to get it right and just eventually tried to keep up.
Yeah. You can put more than one item in a field and fill in as many of these fields as you like. More items, topics. So that's actually more items, topics actually equals less data. They're all
Can you make a
anded
comment
together.
on that post?
What's that?
Can you make a comment on that post?
Yep.
Cool.
All right. I lost you. Okay. Lower on the subscription page is the JavaScript code that you can run to subscribe to the channels that sends transaction which match the filters of your subscription request. Now, Zach, am I correct that you actually have used the JavaScript client?
Yeah, it's in OrdPost, which I believe is fully up to date. But I can make sure to push the most recent to GitHub right now, because that's a live. We use it for locks there.
Okay, yeah.
And that's something that people can check and is public.
Yeah, and that actually we should probably get the documentation added up, because some of the more recent things like locks are specified in the. Let me go back here.
I'm using some V3 domains here, but I'm just going to push this to GitHub anyway. I don't really care. My GitHub is a trash bin.
Okay, this list is out of date. Everywhere is out of date. So I need to make a point to go through and make sure we have an exhaustive list of all the different output types. The documentation output types are mostly all things that exist on 0 Satoshi outputs. There's some other examples in here, but so run protocol, stas protocol, but a lot of these map, bitcom, boost is only very lightly supported. They made some changes to their standard scripts that only, I don't actually know the status of it. I just know there's some code that didn't work and is commented out. So a lot of
Okay,
the
so
old,
it looks like you're going over a list, but I see oh, never mind. Never mind. I zoomed in, the screen changed. Keep going, sorry.
So the newer things that aren't in here are locks, ordinal locks, and some of the B protocol or the BSV20. I mean, that's kind of part of the one-set ordinals. But we are putting some more data in there for BSV20. And this is actually even wrong. So, content types that are specified on transactions, we split at a semicolon. So the documentation is actually wrong here. The value before the semicolon will appear in context, and the value after semicolon will appear in a subcontext, such that anything that's text plain. Now these are case sensitive values. So in specific cases, like what we're doing with the BSV20, we are explicitly uppercasing the tickers such that they will all match. But anything like content types or whatever, it is case sensitive, and that might need to get changed or fixed or whatever to make it more. Actually, you know what? I don't even know if it is or not.
Just the warning here is that uppercase JPEG is going to be different than lowercase JPEG is going to be different than uppercase JPEG.
Yeah. So pretty much the industry standard for content types is always to do them in lowercase, and it always has been. So you should always do those in lowercase. But if someone inscribed them with a different case, we would have to add special rules to make that recognizable. And if a case can be made that we should do that, I'm sure we're happy to do that. But I'm kind of speaking off the cuff on that because I didn't even think about that until just now. That's pretty much it for your tweets there, Zach. Anyone else want to talk about that? Anyone want to go deeper into anything on any other topic that you're something you're working on, something you want help with? Anything like that?
Well, if not, and please speak up if so. But if not, I do have this sample. It's not a sample, it's ord post. But this example code that we could talk about for a second.
Yeah.
Because I think what's important here, on the Jungle Bus side, the implementation side, is that the subscription is required to come from a server, and it really tries to optimize that you only have one subscription for your application. You can't do the subscription from the client only, right? It has to be done from the server side.
Yeah.
And
So I should probably have restated that more. This is really not intended. Like, yes, that sample you can view from a browser, but these subscriptions do enforce concurrency rules. And so it is not at all intended that you would have this on your web page and have a bunch of different copies of the web page all pulling from a subscription. This is very much intended to feed other indexers, not to feed end users.
right.
Yeah.
And that is the point, right? So no matter how many times somebody hits the web server for my domain, that should not affect how many times I talk to Jungle Bus. My conversation with Jungle Bus, my communications with Jungle Bus happen one-on-one, independent of what's happening with the client request. Fair point? Dave?
Yeah, sorry, I
You
was
got
getting
muted.
myself a glass of water and was muted. Yes.
Okay. So here I've set up a few functions. Well, let's get rid of some of this. So this comes straight out of OrdPost. We'll change and update the URLs as needed here in a minute. I have an append state to file function that came out of a Node.js app that I was running, but really I'm going to save the transaction in Firebase. So save transaction. takes all the details that I care about, passed down to me, or in some cases, even for authors, one that I may find in a different way. But I take a look at an incoming transaction, and then I save the transaction. It may do something more before that, you may do something after that, but essentially you figure out what you want to save from that transaction, you save it. And here we have, and this is server-side code, right? So this is incoming request, this is a handler. We set some things to make sure that the stream can exist and stay alive. Right? So these are just, this is a next.js app. So you can basically just copy and paste these settings, keep that going. If you need to know a little bit more about the detail, obviously you can go do some research on your own.
That exact same code
And then,
will work for just a standard Express server as well.
yeah, right. So I think, honestly, I think Next.js is Express.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that, but right. So it basically just sets some things up when we get the first request in to open up this events.js connection. In the current iteration, we're saving the current block number, right? So I didn't necessarily save that somewhere in a database until we're done with it. Really, that's when you should be saving the current block number, completed block. I try to get some information so that I know something about the block. Now, this is not coming from Jungle Bus. I hit what's on chain here. Say, hey, what's the latest block number right now? And because this is ord post, I don't actually care about all of the locks. I was just trying to see what happened in the last day to show a report. So I chose the current block number. I got the response from what's on chain, shows the current block number minus 144. So it's on average 1 day ago. And then, raise some concerns if there's actually an error. When creating this subscription, mark out on the screen, right, so that we could see every time something happens, because as David mentioned, sometimes they don't happen in the exact order that you would expect. And we use Chalk for doing this, I believe. No, not in here. That's in a different place in the application. Then we figure out, okay, on status, when something's happened, tell me. But if it's just that a block is complete, I don't need to know that yet. For this one, I'm just going to keep going. I'm only looking at a certain subset of blocks. We've set up what these callback methods could be for on error, on mempool, and the one that's important is on publish. So on publish is what's going to get called every time we find a new transaction. And in doing this, kind of the update logic.
I should point out to you, Zach, that, oh, you're not passing it anyways. I was going to say, for like that on mempool, if you're not doing anything, you're better off to not even wire up the handler. And it looks like you did now that I said that. But because if you don't wire up a handler, it won't even hit that subscription, and it will be a lot less data coming over the wire.
Cool. All right, so there is some chalk in here, guys. This is how we like color output. There's some stuff at the top wrapping this whole code. I think that was this file, right? No, this actually worked all right. Sorry, never mind. Let's ignore that for a second. Okay, so on publish, the first thing that I'm going to do is process the transaction, right? So on publish takes the transaction that we're getting from Gorilla Pool. And then in this case, I cared about how much was locked and how long it was locked for. But if we take a look at the process transaction, I'm taking the TXID and then I'm seeing, hey, have I actually looked at this transaction before? I got this little map called response cache. And if I did, I'm taking that data. If not, I'm going back out to Gorilla Pool and saying, hey, can you give me a little bit more context about this lock specifically? Because I want some more enriched data. We do a whole bunch of other things with the locks, and you can go take a look at what we're doing here. Some of it has to do with some social mapping as well. So I think you can see, if you can see my code here, these are broken out into steps. This is meant to be instructional. So we found that there was something with the lock. I didn't really need all of this, but I left the comments up. I left this code commented out here so that you guys, if you happen to download and implement this or try to run it, what you will see if you uncomment this is basically a full console log of each iteration, or rather each sub context of this JSON object all the way from the top level of a transaction data lock, transaction data lock until, and address. And there are other transaction contexts in here as well beyond lock, but you can see how that pattern works out. For me, in this one, we're checking to see if a lock is significant. So locking a single Satoshi will not be responded to. Social posts locked to a single Satoshi just to publish them, not necessarily to say that somebody else has found this valuable. So once I have some information, right, we got some information about the lock here. If this fits my criteria, then I want to say, cool. I'm telling myself here in a log that we got some information that was relevant to us. We see that this is locked in a block for long enough, right? Locked until. And then this is the subset. How many blocks was this locked for? Now, I'm looking for some social context here. So for this transaction, I want to know that it has context, it has a data object, and that it has some map details. We're saying, you know, is this a org post lock? Is this a hodl locker lock? And is this somebody locking to the post, or is this somebody publishing it? So in the case where somebody's locking to the post, sometimes their pay mail is included as well. I think this has kind of fallen away, honestly, because it was a little too much to track. I've asked them to put it back in. But essentially, if somebody included their pay mail in the lock, so this was like me, Zach wins at RelayX, .io, who's locking against Shrugger at RelayX.io's hodl locker post, then my pay mail may be in that as well. When you make a post, your pay mail is definitely in it. So if you wanted to start to index some of those things, that would be how you came about it. We'll remove these V3s because I don't think I need these anymore. There's one up here too. Oh, I got rid of it already. Okay.
And if anyone thinks it's a great idea to just out of the blue tip, don't do it to the address he just said, because that I don't control.
That's a good point. Okay, so then I also wanted to find out some more context about the first one is taking a look at the lock and the locker. The second one is taking a look at the context of the post. I create a state object out of all the details that I found, and then I save that transaction to my Firebase database. In doing so, I also print some things out on the screen so that I could see from my server what's being logged and follow the log in sort of a trace mode. But essentially what this does, this event.js file on ordpost, which you can find on GitHub, is it initiates a connection to Jungle Bus on a server where a React app also lives. And so while I'm deciding here to save this information into a Firebase database, you could decide to save it into a Postgres database, or I guess SQL can even power React these days, local databases, or even files, right? You don't have to save it into a database. You can just put it right in a write file if that was easiest. But it's an example of creating a single client on a React app that can power multiple pages, where all of those pages will not get their own subscription. The subscription is managed once from the server that's hosting the website application, subscribing to a number of events that are published down or pushed down from Jungle Bus, looking at each transaction that gets pushed down when we have an open subscription that finds something that we want, and then actually initializing this this subscription. So yeah, you can take my subscription ID too. I don't really care. They'll give me a new one real quick. You guys saw how easy that was to create. But you can see that within 276 lines, we got basically a full indexer, and it's only looking at the last 144 blocks of lock data. So it's a relatively simple indexer, but it wasn't that complicated to build. And then I guess if we go to blocks feed, you can see that in order to get this information from my own server, I created a use effect call, right? that subscribes to the event source, and this is just like JavaScript stuff. This isn't custom stuff. I guess this is built-in JavaScript stuff. Where I'm hitting my own endpoint called API events, which opens that connection to Jungle Bus. For my event source, I'm adding a listener on the transaction, and then I'm calling this method called fetch recent locks, which will then populate begin to populate my database. From there, we close the event source if this page closes. So that connection to and from Jungle Bus is only opened or closed so long as there is a single client page open that is listening for that subscription. If everybody closes their tab, everybody leaves Ordpost, that full subscription will be closed and data will stop being piped to the indexer. So those are some things of note in the implementation from the JavaScript and React JS side. This is specifically with, I think this is a Next.js app. So it comes with the Next server that's built on Express, like we mentioned. But that's some best practices and management for setting up how to interact directly with the Jungle Bus subscription from a React application. Dave, any other comments there?
Well, just comments to you a little bit about this whole approach. And I can't totally, I'm not sure how admin controlled or whatever this is, but when you're like in your case here where you're reading everything into your Firestore database for end users who are visiting your site, that database is the source of all the data, not Jungle Bus, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. So I just want to just kind of clarify the difference of here. Yes, you're using web requests to facilitate this within your system, but random end user requests should not be driving Jungle Bus requests in the back end, because or at least you got to have some deduping such that you don't have more than one request going to Jungle Bus at the same time. Because
Right.
that
Any
is
request
where you start losing like multiple of those essentially are the same channel. So if like one of those connections disconnects and the other one is connected, and then that one disconnects and the other one connect, like you could get incomplete data because all the state is at the entire connection level. So if you're multiplexing at all, your state is going to get totally jacked up.
So in this case, we only have one connection to Jungle Bus ever, and that's through the events.js endpoint. No matter how many people hit the page, this connection will only be initiated one time.
Yeah, perfect. Okay.
Right? And then if all people leave the page, right, so there's no more clients on Ordpost, this connection will close. So that's a good point. This is not a persistent connection if everybody closes your web page, which means you may have incomplete data. But if you're saving the last block that you completed processing, then anytime somebody comes to hit your page the next time, you can start from the last block that you logged and just collect all the most recent information. For me, if nobody hit Ordpost in 10 days, it didn't matter. I didn't want to collect all 10 days worth of data. I just wanted to populate the last 144 blocks worth of block information.
So you're just using the presence of users to trigger whether or not you care about data or not. And if there are no
That is
users,
correct.
you don't care about data at all.
That is correct.
Cool.
Because it's really, in this case, it's the user that cares about data. And maybe at some point they'll care more about 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, whatever. But for right now, just as an example of how to subscribe, how to listen, how to process, and how to save, this was a pretty easy example.
Cool.
Guess I should get that subscription ID off there. What do we do next?
Yeah, that's it for Jungle Bus, unless anyone's got more specific questions. Otherwise, I'm open to talk about some of the lessons we've learned and changes we've made in the one-set indexer. Although They're not all done yet, but I'm happy to discuss that. Or if there's anything else anyone wants to ask about, talk about, show off, or work through, floor is open.
Well, I think because we're on stream right now, it would be a really good idea just to have you walk and talk through those things anyhow. Excuse me. And we'll stick around to do the show off or ask questions later because, I mean, personally, I do have a question about that parent-child stuff. But I do think it's important to get on stream, you describing some of the upgrades or implementations or choices that have been made specifically related to this upgrade.
Yeah. Let me give me just a second here to rearrange my desktop, and then I will share my screen again. And ooh, is OneSetOrdinals.com broken right now? No.
The Ordinals wallet page was throwing me an application error right before we logged in,
Yeah,
or
that
right
sounds
before we started streaming.
okay. Well, I'll
There's
sort out
some sort of
Panda.
okay.
So, or maybe there won't. Well, yeah. Hold on. Share screen. Okay. So the first thing that the first kind of major change that is happening to the OneSat Ordinals indexer is the concept of inscription numbers, which have from the very beginning been something that I wish I never would have added. Inscription numbers are no more as they were previously. Uh-oh.
Before you freak out, that doesn't mean they'll never come back. That doesn't mean that they can't be shown ever. It just means in order to optimize, we've created a different system for indicating something like an ID of these ordinals.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't. Well, we're gonna go to the Swagger docs and do it this way.
Actually, I think that's better because I like that we're showing the Swagger docs on the stream.
Yeah.
People can get a little bit more comfortable with them rather than going to OneSat or Panda.
So this is the easiest way to, in fact, if ever you hit a problem and things aren't working the way that you expect, like I go to this all the time because it basically shows kind of all the different endpoints that are exposed and you can interact with them. So if I, for right now, go to inscriptions recent, let's see if this one works. So you got to click try it out on whichever one you're looking at. It will prompt you with the fields that are available for you to pass in and include default values. So here I'm going to say I want to see the 100 most recent inscriptions. When I execute this, it is going to give me JSON, which as far as technobabble code goes, is pretty easy to grasp and understand. But here's the thing I want to point out. Origin. Uh-oh. Well, let's see here. Do I have any that have it? Things are very much a work in progress right now, so I'm not getting any numbers on. Oh, I wouldn't on recent because those are unmined ones. Let's go to the market search. Market. Try it out, and I'm just going to get the most recent ones there. Okay, so previously we had a sequential number that would get applied to inscriptions as they were kind of established their place on the chain. So the solution to kind of handling this super load of inscriptions that we don't care about well, I shouldn't say we don't care about, but right now they're not the priority for keeping things running with like the OJBK tokens and things like that. Like in order to generate a sequential inscription number, we need to know about every inscription that has ever been created. We need to sort them in order, and we need to give them a sequential number. And the problem with that comes in that we don't actually at this point know all the inscriptions. Like I showed you the Ord inscription we were using through Jungle Bus, which is explicitly saying, I don't want to see any inscriptions that have BSV20. There are other subscriptions we can do to get that BSV20 stuff, but those are limited to, I want to look at this token, or I want to look at this type of, I want to look at deploys, or I want to look at deploy plus mint ops. But it's not, we're not looking at, here's the whole realm of everything that exists on the chain for all inscriptions. But the one thing that you get with the inscription number is some concept of what came first. Who is the OGest of the OG inscriptions? And so what we're actually giving it now as the num is the immutable characteristics on chain that determine which came first. So it is the block height, colon, the index in the block. So this was the 877th transaction in that block. And the inscription was on output 0 of that transaction. So every inscription in the system will have a number like this, and those numbers are absolute sortable by block height. So if you've got one, so the genesis for one sat ordinals was like 783. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but like, so ones that start with 783 are much older than ones that are 821. So this does give us an absolute sort of what comes first and what comes after. Again, the real problem with the inscription number is the realm of all inscriptions. Now, that's not to say someone couldn't externally from this create a subscription to Jungle Bus. In fact, I could even do it externally from this once all the other issues are gone and done, and once it becomes priority. But you can create a Jungle Bus subscription that just looks at that Ord output type, gets all the transactions, parses all the transactions, and simply counts how many inscriptions there are. And it's just a matter of having a record in a database for every output that has an inscription in it, sorting them by these numbers right here, the block height, the block index, and the V out, and then assigning a sequential number to them. But again, from kind of like what one set indexer is focused on, is it's focused on delivering the types of data that so like non-fungible inscriptions. That's something that we can't break because too many fungible inscriptions happen on chain. So that is its own dedicated indexer, its own dedicated subscription. Individual BSV20 tickers that we've whitelisted, those are their own dedicated subscription. And locks are their own dedicated inscription. Ordinal lock, which are market listings, those are their own separate subscription. And I mean, I think right now we've got about 12 separate subscriptions that are driving the one set ordinals indexer.
What are the others?
Let's see here. BSV20s are getting, so before they were kind of intermixed in with all the other, am I still sharing or did I stop? Yes. They were previously intermixed in with all other inscriptions. And if you hit some of the endpoints right now, things are not totally separated out yet, but there are and will be dedicated BSV20 endpoints for everything that you're doing with BSV20 UTXOs. And the system is really going to be pretty split in that BSV20 is one thing, inscriptions are another thing, and they don't really mix with each other from the API standpoint. So a lot of these have been there for a long time. For your address, you can get. In fact, is this gonna let me? Yes, receive. Let me grab my. Okay. So for my token balance, here's what I got right now. You guys can all see my super secret stuff. I have. That ends up with the decimal
Can you
places.
zoom in a little?
Yep. Sorry.
All good.
So this is bamboo. I own 442 bamboos because bamboos have
Yeah, bamboozled.
8 decimal places. So all these, whenever you're dealing with kind of the APIs for BSV20s, the decimals that are defined within that token, it is on your application to figure out where those decimals go. So like if I open my Panda wallet here, I think I have tokens. There we go.
So basically, you're saying that all coins are fully integers.
Yes,
all the
there's
time,
no decimals
and
in Bitcoin accounting at all. You have to
they're
convert
just
them to
called.
decimals. So where it says I have 442 and 8 zeros, and I see this decimals is 8, what Bamboo is showing is 442. Same thing with this vibes here. I have 47619 followed by 8 zeros, or I guess the 9 is the decimal. So then Panda is showing 4761.9. Every token, when you deploy it, you can specify the decimals between 0 and 18. The default of BRC20, I believe, is that they default to 18 decimal places. BSV20 defaults to 0 decimal places. But like lock to mint, that contract just hard codes it at 8 decimals because it was too hard to do the math otherwise.
Same as Bitcoin.
What's that?
Same as Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's because we were doing a relationship between how many Satoshis to how many tokens. It made the most sense to do it directly in same 8 decimals. Oh wait, okay. So for an address, you can get your UTXOs in fact, let me go back to that again. Get the Bamboo token ID. So if I go, yeah. So if I look for my actual token UTXOs for Bamboo for my address, this is going to show, okay, here are the actual UTXOs of Bamboo I've got. I have 3 of them. This one has 280. This one has 160. And this one, I don't know where the decimal counts are, but whatever. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, this has 2. And so these give you everything. If you want to bundle up your BSV20s such that, so say I wanted to send Zach 400 of these. Well, I would need to find UTXOs that equal at least 400 tokens. So this works just like Bitcoin does. That okay, here's one of my UTXOs, it has 280. Here's another one of my UTXOs is 160, so that together is 440. So if I wanted to send Zach 400, I would pass these two as inputs. I would build a transfer inscription to give him 400, and I would give myself a transfer inscription to get 40 of them back. Okay, collection, that's there's a number of these things that honestly, since some of the re-engineering has happened on the fly, I can't guarantee that they work. Kind of crossing off issues as we come to them.
But if you do see issues or unexpected behavior, one really good place to make note of that is the general dev channel inside of this OneSat Ordinals Discord. So whatever you see, whatever you want to report, both David and Luke are responsive in that channel. Please drop it with as much detail as
As far as the APIs, we've done is, except for the BSV20 things, the API trying to keep completely unchanged where I can. So for the most part, all of these are the same as the V3 endpoints. There's a couple newer ones that had already been in the works for V4, and then when V3 kind of blew up and we had to move V4 to production,
they got merged.
yeah, they got merged. They're there. But I guess it's to kind of set the, like, this whole thing is very much a fluid application, and we're trying to get it as stable and as professionalized and mature as possible. But it's still very much a work in progress. And I mean, I'm working on rewiring some things. I did right before we got on this call. I'm gonna get back to it after. So it's not ever going to get to a point probably that says this is a done product. It is probably always going to be evolving product, but to the extent possible, the API is going to get concrete and stay such that you can rely on the APIs not changing.
And hopefully we will be able to, in a more stable manner, upgrade versions if necessary. So in the early days, you did a bunch of jumping around, V1, V2, V3, then back to no version at all for V4. But ideally, this will not blow up again.
A lot of that was more about how you say,
getting code out that needed to be out.
Well, yeah, that's part of it. I mean, there was there was an actual catastrophic loss of a server some months ago, and V3 was already
Right.
spun up, running, and ready to take over. But so as we get redundancy, as we get things real production ready, that kind of scenario shouldn't happen again. I'm not going to say right now that things are going to be solid and there's no downtime. There will be some downtime here or there still, but it's getting better.
Not like what we saw over the last week.
Dear God, I hope not.
Okay, well, listen, that was about an hour session.
Yeah. Does anyone else want to take this floor?
Yeah, I've actually got a question about the inscription or the ordinal ID, the block height, transaction index, output index thing.
Yeah.
What is like the primary use case that services or you guys have been using it for? I'm asking just because you never know if there could be like a reorg and that could potentially change the position.
Yeah, it is not established until block is 10, nope, not 10, 6 deep. Well, that's not totally true. I mean, it's a fluid. If there's a reorg, we will be reindexing the reorg, and that transactions data will get updated.
Right. Okay.
But from the beginning, like what we were using as inscription numbers, I've been very outspoken from the very beginning that I hate them and they're a bad idea and we shouldn't use them for anything. And you should never rely on them to be stable because
Right.
because knowing that I mean, it's the same problem they had in BTC that, like, okay, the indexer, old version of the indexer had missed some things. Well, now you're faced with keeping versioned numbers of the indexers for different block heights and dealing with cursed and all that kind of stuff. When the fact of the matter is we have immutable ordering information on chain that will never change once things are deep enough to be not to be reorged away. And so rather than worrying about this, did our indexer catch everything? We're using the immutable data from the chain to to identify.
Gotcha. And I have another question just about the difference between the like the what is it, the endpoint that gives you like more detail on a transaction, like specific things about the script, versus the transaction, like the broad what's in the transaction, like what tags it gets.
In Jungle
Um,
Bus?
Yeah, yeah. So my question is, when you get the transaction and it just tells you like the array of tags, like what might be in an output of this transaction, is that because the like Jungle Bus is already like read through the output script and has like definitively that definitely is like a not a malformed output,
No.
or is it like just looking for a prefix?
So it is nothing from like the idea with Jungle Bus is whatever matches its patterns matched its patterns.
Got it.
But whether or not it's a valid instance of whatever protocol you're trying to implement, you got to do the further validation to make sure it actually is that thing. So
so, like,
it's
technically
kind of
the
doing the
tag.
heavy lifting of basically giving you a much trimmer load of transactions for you to figure out how to index.
Got it. Okay.
Now there are, I mean, it's certainly possible that there are problems with some of the parsers here or there. I've been cleaning a lot of those up over the last 6 months. The ordinal parser is, I don't foresee that having any that it misses. But I mean, it is certainly possible. Like Jungle Bus is not at this point any guarantee that says if this existed on the chain, you will get it. There's not like, but at the same time, it's going through the exact same code, the exact same process, the same parsing for every transaction it sees.
That's
And
basically a disclaimer. It finds everything. Gabe is giving you the disclaimer, like, don't blame me if there's a new content type that doesn't come down, or, there was a weirdly encoded space somewhere and we missed one. But for
Yeah.
the most part, Jungle Bus is getting everything all the time, every day.
yeah. I mean, it's feeding all the indexers. I feel strongly enough that it's going to give us accurate data. And nothing's gone from the chain. I mean, if there's something that we miss, we can certainly fix it. But it's pretty solid and it's pretty stable. And I've been really impressed with kind of. I mean, I've been using it really heavily for about 4 or 5 months now, and um, it's pretty solid and it's super fast. Oh, on that topic, if you are, um, it does sometimes cause issues if you can't consume the data as fast as it's trying to deliver you the data.
I like the sound of that.
So you may need to take those feeds and add them to other worker queues or things like that to, because if it gets a big backlog, I mean, the worst thing that's happened is your connection's going to drop and you're going to have to maybe re-get some data that you thought you already had because you dropped mid block or something. But if you try to do a bunch of heavy processes and make it wait for you, data will just keep piling up, buffers will fill, and then the connection will drop. So you gotta consume this stuff because it's a fire hose.
Got it. Yeah, I have a transaction parser that's like basically the current iteration just takes the raw binary, like the raw full transaction binary, and then it'll like step through the script, almost kind of like a lightweight interpreter, and then it'll check to just make sure that it matches like the push data bytes, that's ORed, that's like
Yeah.
application.bsb20. Um, so I just wanted to like figure that out because for multiple templates, I might just be able to deploy like a separate parser if I can. Like, I just wanted to know if I could reliably just query Jungle Bus for ones that are ORed, and then that way I could just scan that template on one instance versus like another template on another instance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
right
in
now I
fact,
have like 5 templates that I'm checking on each transaction.
let me go over here. So I've got some of them offline right now, but these are the different topics that the different separate indexers that I've got. And some of them fill the same database tables. Some of them fill other database tables, but like,
I don't
so,
think you're sharing screen in there.
oh, I'm not, you're right. So, I've got this one has actually got a bunch of subscriptions within it, but I have one worker that is opening numerous subscriptions for the different whitelisted BSV20s that we've got. I have another subscription that's looking at all the BSV20 deploys. I have another one that's looking at all the V2 deploy plus mints. I have another subscription that's looking at all the locks. I have another subscription that's looking at all the ord lock, which are the ordinal locks. So that's the contract that that all the marketplace of ordinals lives in. I have another subscription for when those are spent. Some of these are stopped right now because I was in the process of reworking it. I have another general mempool process. That's not actually a Jungle Bus feed at all. That is OpNS, which is a name system protocol that is deployed on ordinals, has its own listener. Here's my general ord one, which is used that topic that is excluding the BSV20s. And then these two are just different server pieces. So yeah, I'm doing exactly that, where there's a lot of different I'm using Jungle Bus to trim the data down, and some of those
Yeah.
might actually receive the same transactions, but they're doing different parsing on those transactions.
Right. Yeah. That's basically what I was trying to figure out. Is like I kind of I wrote like a template manager that like would like stop checking a certain template if it didn't match. Just like something DIY spun up, but it would be a lot better to like be able to just deploy like one parser separately from another one and just have them like manage their own separate like format. So
Yeah.
cool. And if I don't need like the entire, like if I don't need it formatted as a JSON, is there an endpoint where I can just get it like raw, like binary? Like if I just need
Yeah.
it to my
So
server?
there's actually a couple of improvements coming in that direction. So first of all, right now, that actually isn't coming as JSON. It's coming as protobuf.
Okay.
But the UI was creating JSON out of that protobuf object, and then just so it can show it to you.
Oh,
But
no, yeah.
right now, so that, and that's actually going back to the question you had earlier. I stopped sharing. Let me start sharing again. So, so this data that's actually returned to you, there's actually,
I think all this sharing and not sharing is gonna biff the recording. We might have to do this again. Thinking about Cherish's desktop view, like what that would look like right now, and I don't think it would have zoomed in on us. Because I just had to
well, oh well. This data right here, well, not this header information, but addresses, inputs, outputs, all these fields here, go away, are actually what this is giving you is simply the index that is being searched against for all the filters. So the idea is not here that this is giving you all this rich information about this transaction. This is really just saying these are the things that we indexed about this transaction. You matched some bit of this criteria, but it's not trying to dig deep in and figure out, like you said, what's valid or not. It's really just saying, here's the stuff we indexed about. Here's the stuff we tagged. And so if you get a transaction like this, you can see what's tagged, and if you can know this is how this transaction got indexed. But
Yeah. So
go to your
basically like,
bigger question. There's actually 3 different data sources that are coming together to push this data down. There is the raw transaction data, which lives in one place. There's the Merkle proofs, which lives in another place. And then there's the rest of this data. And an improvement that we absolutely want to make to this is to let you selectively choose which of those pieces of data you actually are going to receive. So there's definitely use cases where, like, for instance, in my case, where I've got, I don't know, 12 different topics hitting 12 different things. Well, I've got a local cache of all the transactions. So I don't actually need these topics to give me the raw transaction for every one of them. I could actually just have it give me the raw transaction IDs, or just give me the transaction IDs. And if I've already got them cached, I don't need to go request them again. And that transaction volume doesn't need to cross the network.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when I was asking about the script hashes, is like if I already have that like output format already parsed and validated, I can just like reference the like the that the ord like JSON itself is valid and stuff. So
Yeah. One other thing I actually forgot to mention before, is, so we talked about, like, everything is equals essentially. So everything are ands, and everything you specify is an equals. Except for if you start with an exclamation point, that is a not equals. So basically, if don't give me ones that have that value. You can also do comma, let's say, well, I don't want to do it here. Let's go. You can also use a caret. Oops. Caret, and say ID equals. And what a caret means is where the value that's indexed starts with that string. So essentially in this case, well, let me actually change this. So if my data looked like that, I would be saying I want everything that has context of application BSV20 and where the data starts with ID equals. So that right there would kind of narrow things down to only the V2 of BSV20s, because those have an ID, where
I see.
V1s have a tick. But like to actually find a specific ID, I need ID equals, and then I put the whatever it is. Okay, there's no S's in there, it's hexadecimal. But anyways, whatever it
This
is.
is like this is a string search, not like, so basically if the JSON has a field ID, I couldn't put like caret ID. I'd have to put ID equals. Or
Yeah.
how does that
So
work?
this data keys is populated based on, it's kind of a key value, but they get stored as one. And it gets populated with map protocol, which is a kind of a key value tagging mechanism. So map keys and values, if we hit a map transaction, we'll populate the data equals where key equals value. And then also, I think the only other thing that's populating right now are specifically BSV20s. And that's just a rule that's been added in the last few days. And like I say, it's actually still recrawling some of those. So that's not even a full data set yet.
Gotcha. So yeah, data keys is like the map protocol, like key value. That's what that's for.
Right. But in the same way, you could stay here where context starts with application. And that would give you application JSON, but that also give you application / MS Word or whatever else people have inscribed. Application / PDF. Or, but yeah, they're all just string searches. And really you have equals, not equals, and starts with. That's kind of the only options there are.
Okay. Yeah, I know with map that like, so the key values will come after a like address prefix for that protocol. Does the protocol have to be supported already, or can I just search that like address in the operaturn?
Yeah. So let's actually, I created a new sample already down there. So let's go to this one. Oh, did I not? Well, here's one that's called deprecated. Let's play with that one. Okay. So for instance, if I stick map as an output type here, I'm gonna go update subscription. And I'm gonna go, you just called this playground, right? Or What did I just call? Oh, there it is. Test. All right, I'm just going to start it. All right. So for map itself, so this was a tonic POW. And this is the data that was on it. So you could search for any of these data that comes from map. I think your question was actually about Bitcom, which is what map is one example of.
Yeah, that's actually what I meant. But both, that's still useful to know.
But if I go, let's go back and let's go back to the playground again here. And I say Bitcom, and I say the context is that. Now if I go to that playground and go test. So this one, that's not what I put in. Is that what I put in? No, I don't remember. I should have two windows
Me neither.
open. That would make this a lot easier. Huh. Maybe I'm wrong about these all being ands. That did not have that as a context. Let me update this one more time. I'm going to copy this. Cancel, new tab. I'm going to paste that. I don't know what this is. Go away. All right, so now let me go to test. Huh.
This is like every Bitcom ever.
Yeah, well, it looks like something. Yeah, well, yes, this is every Bitcom starting from block 750,000.
Right.
Something is wrong with my and criteria there, and I don't know what it is. Because I said I wanted only one PU. So I don't know why these other ones are coming back. I must have something wrong on, I don't know. But I guess we'll give a
If you
specific.
did like the Bitcom prefix and the map prefix, maybe that would come up.
Well, I was really just trying to show how you do a specific Bitcom. Actually, let me leave Bitcom off and let me just put the context of that. I think that will work. So if I go, oh, now I lost the map one. bitcoinschema.org. Go to, actually, let's look at B protocol. Okay, so B uses, oh, that's what I was just looking at. So those were B protocol ones. Honestly, if there's something specific you want to do and this isn't working, like there might be an issue I need to look into. But in theory, I had thought that if you specified multiple fields, it would treat them as ands. Apparently, it's ors, and that surprises me. So hopefully, there isn't something wrong.
Yeah, that's why I asked, is just because I know that the address prefix is the only part of it that's not like a key value. It's just a like a key with, it's a value with no key.
Yeah, and that is technically so. Map and B and AIP, all of those are are Bitcom protocols.
Yeah.
And so those are addressed, or those are indexed as Bitcom, as well as map or as AIP or as B or BAP or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. So if there was like a new protocol that spun up, yeah,
Yeah,
Sort of-
any Bitcom protocol that you were to use is already indexed this way. So you could just put the index or the protocol ID in context, and it should find you just transactions that had that Bitcom protocol ID.
cool.
Anybody else? Anything else? So Drowsy, you have specific projects you're working on, or you're just playing around with these ideas for stuff you might want to do in the future?
No, I've got a project I'm working on. I just wanted to, join this and get a better understanding of what the tools are and like what the support is for certain protocols. Because I know since like everything went down recently, that there were some like changes to the rules. So I mostly joined to hear about that, but also questions about Gorilla Pool, how you guys are indexing stuff, handling the load. Just because I got to keep costs down with like redundant data and like redundant parsing of stuff. So
Yeah. Essentially, Jungle Bus is what is allowing us to scale and to do this and to kind of be able to recover. Otherwise, the only real answer would be throw a hell of a lot more hardware at it
yeah,
and really re-optimize things. And essentially, the solution, if I didn't have Jungle Bus, would be to recreate Jungle Bus.
yeah, it sounds like that's part of what I'm doing with these indexers. Yeah, mostly working on stuff that is like going to integrate BSV20, like maybe LRC20, depending on what the support is for that long term. So just want to like hear how that was going in this call and stuff.
Yeah, and so for like LRC20, I don't know if anyone can tell me, those, they just use a generic content type, is that correct?
No, it's slash LRC20
Application slash
instead of
LRC20?
slash. Yeah,
Okay, so like, let's actually,
but there's some validity rules there, right? So
yeah,
it's first is first plus lock.
LRC-20.
Yep.
Okay, so let's see here.
Yeah, I
You're
was
not
confused about
sharing
this
if you
too because
weren't intending to.
the
Oops,
spec on GitHub says application JSON.
that's what I was afraid of. So that's actually why the idea, eventual idea of using Jungle Bus to feed it is why BRC or BSV20 specified a different content type explicitly. Because if you're going to try and index LRC20s and they're just standard application JSONs, now at this point in time, OneSat Ordinals indexer does index everything that's not BSV20, and it parses the JSON and saves it in a searchable fashion. So from OneSat here, I can go inscription search, try it out. A little sample here. Let's get rid of this. Rid of this. And is it op LRC20?
Yeah.
Lowercase like this?
Or actually, it's P LRC20 and then
Oh,
op
yep.
deploy.
Yeah. Well, I can put those both in. Hopefully this works. Yeah, it does. Okay. So from the OneSat ordinals process, that same subscription I'm doing that is looking for all ord from Jungle Bus are then being processed further in the OneSat ordinals indexer,
Yeah.
such that the JSON is being saved in a way that can be searched. Actually, this whole data object. So if I go to the bottom of this docs page, it actually, that is essentially what it takes is a partial TXO data. So in here, there's an inscription type within that, which has a JSON type, which is JSON. And so if it's a JSON inscription, you can just, in this JSON element, put essentially a partial of whatever your JSON is that you're searching against. So in the same way from here, I could look for everything where the JSON file type is text/plain. And okay, oh, it's not. Oops, it's not JSON. That's the inscription object. And there we go. Everything. So this data object right here is very, very searchable and flexible.
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays,
Yeah,
whatever else
yeah,
you're
see.
celebrating out there.
Who's listening to Kurt?
Thank you for joining us this year, 2023, on the Quick Geek Weekly live stream. And your host, Kurt Booker Jr.
So yeah, one more question.
Yeah.
This is more, I guess, in terms. I'm not asking in terms of
Okay,
validity of the token, but more so about like the
Hold on one sec.
indexer parsing.
Whoever's streaming, Kurt, can you please turn that off? I can't listen to both
Yo,
at the same time.
homie, got it out.
Okay, go ahead.
Not about validity of the tokens, but in terms of the indexer like detecting them. Do you guys enforce any rules in terms of like, so LRC20 on those docs will put like amount as a number, even though most BSV20s do like the dollar amounts as a
Yeah, that's actually going to be a problem. I don't enforce any rules, but JavaScript and JSON do enforce some rules, which is a JSON number loses precision after, I think, 2 to the 56th or something like that.
Yeah.
And so whoever drew up that spec, that's going to be a problem because values that are over that amount will lose precision as they convert to and from numbers in JavaScript.
Gotcha. Yeah. Cool. Just wanted to confirm that because it looks like the response on these, the ones that have followed the spec so far, when you queried them, came back as numbers. So
Yeah, it's just giving back the whatever JSON was stuck in. Again, like from this endpoint, there's no validation. Like the only validation that's happening is that we can actually parse the JSON. If we can parse the JSON, it's getting populated.
okay, yeah. I just want to know if it would like just to make sure it would count in the query for ord if there was like, you know, some spec that had a key value that was a number instead of a string, just to, you know, just to know if I'd get it in the response. Looks like I do.
Yeah, you'll get garbage in, garbage out.
Cool.
So whatever you ask for is what you'll get. And again, we're not any things about like LRC20 or whatever like that. They've got their own protocol rules, their own definitions for what is, and we're not trying to enforce any of that. The ones that indexer is trying to just be kind of jungle bus down to the next level. And it might be in the future they actually need an LRC, which is yet another level down of. But all these things are just going to flow from like, obviously the top level is just Bitcoin unadulterated. And then Jungle Bus filters that down. I consume that. I process that and filter that down. And then you're querying my stuff. And then again, if you're running an LRC20 indexer, maybe you go to me, maybe you skip me and go right to Jungle Bus. Any way you want to slice and dice it, you can do that.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I'll press it one step further, and then I'll stop there. Like let's say a spec, right? So once that needs a hit a pub key hash script, right?
Yeah.
Can it be an invalid pub key hash? Will I still get that?
So that pub key hash field, well, I mean, technically what I'm giving you is an owner field. It does some intelligent parsing. So basically the first thing it says is if this is just a pay to public key hash, that will get populated. And that means literally the exact 25 byte script.
Yeah. Okay.
So as long as the pub key hash part of it is 20 bytes, and you've got the appropriate opcodes before and after, that will come in as an address.
Got it. Cool.
But also that the owner field in one set ordinals and the address field in Jungle Bus as well also populates other addresses. So if you have an inscription where you've got the first part of the script is an address and then you've got an inscription body, well, it will recognize that that address in that case is an address and it'll populate that in the Jungle Bus address field. So from an address search in Jungle Bus, I will get not only the things not only the transactions that actually belong to that same script hash of the address as beta public key hash, but also ordinal locks where that is the person who can cancel the order, or I'm sorry, the person who's getting paid for the order. Or for inscriptions, it'll take the address that's associated with that inscription. That it was able to parse out of one of 3 standard places that address could be with an inscription. Now, if you
Yeah.
write some crazy custom script that Jungle Bus doesn't recognize, it's not going to know that that's an address. It's not going to associate it with that. But for things that protocols that it's recognizing that do have explicit fields where they will stick an address, Jungle Bus will index that to that address. So if you do a query on that address, you'll get the transaction.
Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, I had to write that today. That was really annoying having like it could be in either side of the script. Like it could be on the it could come first or last. All that
Yeah,
stuff.
so I've actually, due to some feedback from Relay X, and we've
Yeah,
got
they had
like,
it backwards.
well, there isn't really a backwards, unfortunately. That's kind of like the original spec says you can put it anywhere because the original spec is not about trying to match these to an address. It's really just saying there is an inscription on this script somewhere. But due to some just optimizing of how you need to sign these things, actually, let me share the screen again and pull that doc. Oh, it's not committed yet. So there is an update to the ordinal spec that I will get published soon. That basically 40,000 blocks from now or so, like 6 months from now is what I think it was 950, no, I don't 850,000. I don't remember the height. Some block like months from now, we are specifying kind of a standard that says if the inscription is over 1 kilobyte in size, then it has to be first, and then an opcode separator, and then your locking script. And that should, I mean, basically, that is the recommended format for everything, but it's not being enforced for another 6 months, roughly. So right now, everything are valid inscriptions, but for larger inscriptions, so that you can sign them without having to have the whole inscription as part of your signature, inscription first, then opcode separator, and then your locking script, and then you can sign with just signing the locking script part and ignoring the inscription because of that opcode separator.
Got it. Cool.
Shrish, what are you working on? What are you playing with? Or not? All right, guys. Well, anyone else have anything else, or?
No, just thanks for putting these on. Cool to kind of just see what's evolving. The ship
Yeah,
last week was pretty interesting.
yeah, that one went a lot longer. But if there's, I mean, from week to week, if there's anything you're interested in, like the whole idea is this is not meant to be that formal. And like if you've got questions here or there, I'm happy to go into whatever topics anyone wants. But on that note, I'm going to step away and use the bathroom for a moment. If people want to stick around and keep talking, please do so, and I'll be right back. Otherwise, well, I won't leave it otherwise. If you're all gone, then I'll know. I'll be back. Well, folks are still here.
I actually thought of something while you were gone. You're the one who wrote the lockup script, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me ask you. So, I think HODLocker might be using the version that Josh Hensley wrote, but Josh has one in his wallet that's made out of like hex strings, and it doesn't exactly match up the like what script produces as a contract. Do you know like how that thing works? Because I'm not using JavaScript for a lot of stuff, but without like I don't know source of truth on the format of that script, kind of confused on like is there a difference? Like the lockup that you have on your repo isn't the same script, is what I'm getting at.
You sure about that?
It has like 8 extra zeros. It like pads out. I'm not sure what it's compiling.
Oh,
Something
well,
complex else
yeah.
with.
Let me actually pull up the source code and I'll show you how script builds that stuff. And then let me open this project and I'll share my screen. Lockup. Okay. So here's the actual lockup contract, but when you compile an script contract, it creates this. Can you guys see everything? Can everyone see this?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. So it creates this JSON which contains an ABI and it contains this hex. So I'm gonna actually copy this to a new file here. So the hex here is kind of broken into a couple different pieces, and they've got these placeholders for. So every instance of the lockup script is going to have the same byte sequence at the beginning and the same byte sequence at the end. And then these values right here are the constructor variables. And these get written as pushes to the transaction. So essentially my script is whatever this thing turns out to be as a script. And then I'm pushing 20 bytes of a PK hash on. And then I'm pushing an integer. But an integer in Bitcoin can be any size.
Yeah, it's like a varant, right?
Yeah. Well, sorry. This actually, no. At push datas, this isn't a varint. Push data, it's literally just a little endian binary big int. So it can
really?
be 256 bytes long, I think.
I
But
think it might be on like HODLocker. I think it might be encoded as a varant. I'll have to double check that.
I don't think that because the script is not built to handle a varint. So it's in fact I can just go to the lockup code. Oh, that's not going to show actually. But it's just a big int here. So you could put that in there as a 4-byte integer or an 8-byte integer or a 64-byte integer. And as long as the push data is appropriately specifying the length of that string, and as long as it's a little endian, meaning least significant bits are to the left, not to the right, like we normally do things, it will work. So
Okay.
this is probably where Josh is doing something differently. Is however he's populating it, that's getting populated maybe as a 8-byte, as a 64-bit integer, and how HODLocker is maybe it's as a 32-byte bit integer, or whatever else, wherever the discrepancy may come.
Yeah, I'm looking at the like ASM for a HODLocker post right now, and it's 3 bytes for the height. So I think it is like a compressed integer.
Yeah. Lock to mint is using 3 bytes for the height as well.
Gotcha.
Technically, actually, let me open that up. No, LTM. So so yeah, we're actually doing some enforcement in here in lock to mint that says, so I basically, this is, so a little endian, well, or I should say a Bitcoin integer is a signed integer. So if the top bit is a 1, that means it's a negative. So basically, I'm kind of fudging this, and basically, this is the highest height you can put in locktomint.com, which is still many lifetimes away. We're at block 800,000 right now, and that's 9.4 million. And I'm doing that such that will always fit in 3 bytes. And so I'm explicitly writing it as a 3-byte integer in here. But the contract is completely valid if you use a 6-byte or 8-byte or 24-byte integer, as long as your push data prefix is the right amount of bytes.
Right. And that's like at the like if you're using a wallet with like BSV lib or BSV WebAssembly, that's like at the interpreter level, right? So like it's not something where one wallet will like lose support if it's encoded differently.
It should not be.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Well, and even if the wallet support, I mean, the Bitcoin's not going to lose support. I mean,
Yeah.
there's still spendable on Bitcoin. But it's essentially the same as if you were writing the ASM and you put hex that's 6 hex digits long, or you put in hex that's 15 hex digits long, or okay, not 15, that's not a number, 16. Like, that's just, that value is just getting pushed in. So you can represent any number with any number of leading zeros you want, and it doesn't change what the number is.
Yeah.
Except for it's a little endian, I guess they're trailing zeros, but still, you know what I mean.
Cool. Yeah, no, that answers that question. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, that concludes the regularly scheduled programming. I'm happy to hang out here, and if everyone's got anything, I'll just keep working. And if everyone's got any questions, I'm here to ask it. And Zach's probably here the same. And if people all peace out, then we will do the same.
Yeah, thanks for your time. Yeah, you have a good night, guys.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
Is anyone still talking about things?
Nope. I think
Okay.
we're pretty much just like hanging out and co-working at this point, but no one's mics are on, so I don't even know if anyone else is here, if they're just here to show support that there's people.
I know Suresh is recording, so he's not at the computer. I don't know about the rest of these people. Probably same thing.
Anyways, I figure I'll just leave this open, and if anyone's got questions, I can answer, and if not, then it's we're done.
Okay, cool. next week, assuming nothing more important takes precedent, could we potentially build, like live build a small indexer? So something that just indexed like, for instance, .og or some other weird type of collection that doesn't necessarily, that has some extra validation rules, we'll say. Validation rules that Jungle Bus should not be validating.
Yeah. In fact, .og is a plain text, right?
It is.
I mean, we could look at a plain text indexer and then, I
Right, so
believe
it's got
the
that
Java,
extra rule of the lock.
yeah. So I guess it all depends how raw you would want to do that. Like, it would be pretty sweet if we could do all the parsing locally for that. Actually, what day of the week is Christmas?
Oh, no, Tuesday's the 26th next week.
Okay, as day after Christmas. That's probably fine. I mean,
We could also
yeah,
just jump on and drink eggnog together.
yeah, that works too.
I like
I don't
eggnog.
know.
Are you going away for Christmas? Well, I guess we don't have to talk about this on a live stream, but.
Yeah, that's a good point. We can talk personally, but not really is the answer.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
traveling.
Yeah, so we could
west
have like, so if you're back the next day, we could have like Bitcoin Christmas on a stream.
I like it. You got to bring the festivity though. Have the Jewish guy bring the Christmas festivity. Maybe not.
Hey man, I know how to throw a party. I'm not, these are decorations, you know what I mean? I get it.
Cool. Well, I'm
Who
gonna.
am I to tell somebody what to bring to a party?
That's right. All right. Well, I think I'm actually gonna shut this down and get back to testing some things.
Cool, man. I mean, this was 2.5. Well, started a little late, but 2 hours. I mean, that's a good long session.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you could pull in your code as well, and we could kind of go through a real world example.
Yeah, that was cool. It was cool to have that just laying around there.
Sweet.
All right, man.
All
I'll
right,
talk to you soon. Well, I'll be
Yeah.
on Discord. You can message me if you need me help for testing or anything.
will do. Thanks.
All right,
Bye,
man.
everyone else,
Bye.
if you're here.